Hello, friends. Happy Monday. So I am going to go ahead and start off our learning today by clicking on the Enter Here button. And then I am going to click right on Monday, and you will see this is taking you directly to your ELA journal. So I'm going to get that up and open. And then I'm going to wait 50 years for it to load because y'all already know this is our lifestyle. All right, and then I'm going to click on that page that says Monday. Now, this is going to give you a checklist, a to-do list of everything that you need to do for today. So we are going to work on some gist statements looking at a text called the American Revolution. We are also going to work on ordering some events. I'm thinking about that same text. We're going to make sure that we submit our ELA journal so that Miss James has all of the hard work that we put in and can give us some feedback. And then we can go ahead and complete our reading log. Miss James did link well, I can't get to it because I'm in present, but Miss James did link the reading log for us today. So here are our learning targets. I can determine the gist of a nonfiction text. Remember, we are digging into that nonfiction, and I can order events based on a text. Now I'm thinking about this because last week we talked about nonfiction text structures, and I'm seeing that this is a nonfiction text and it's talking about the order of events. So I wonder what type of nonfiction text structure this particular text will follow. I guess that's something we can keep in mind as we continue our learning. But I did want to point out some things here in our learning target. Let's zoom in just a little bit. So as we are going through our learning, we are really focusing in on this here, the gist. You guys remember the gist is like the main idea of a text. It's what that text is all about. And remember, we are focusing in on that nonfiction. That means that this text is real. It's giving us facts about something that truly happened. And then thinking about this where we order, this is where we're thinking about like sequence and chronological order, putting things in the order in which they happened. So we have this text here, and Miss James is going to read it right along with you. So this text is called The American Revolution. Let's move you the little Zoom thing out the way. Okay. April 19th, 1775 marked the end of an era. At dawn that day, British troops fired on American colonists in Lexington and Concord, Massachusetts. This was the beginning of the American Revolution. The war started as a fight for the rights of English people in Britain's 13 American colonies. But those people soon declared and won their independence from Britain. They created a new nation, the United States of America. Hmm. I'm thinking about this introduction here, and I'm also kind of thinking about what this entire passage or what this entire text might be about. So, already thinking about the gist, the main idea, what do you think this section is mostly about? I think that this section is talking about how the Americans fought for their independence independence from the British in the American Revolution. Okay, so that short little paragraph there is really just kind of telling us about how the Americans fought for their independence. Let's read on and see what the remainder of this text is about. The founders. Many people made American independence possible. A group of them are known as the founders of the United States. The best known are George Washington, John Adams, Thomas Jefferson, Benjamin Franklin, and Alexander Hamilton. George Washington led the American military forces, the Continental Army, to victory over the British. He later became the President of the United States. John Adams was the strongest supporter of American independence. He became the first Vice President of the United States of America and its second president. Thomas Jefferson wrote the Americans' Declaration of Independence. He became the nation's third president. Seems like a lot of them became presidents. Benjamin Franklin was the oldest of the founders. He was 70. He was 70 when the Declaration of Independence was signed. Franklin helped get France to become an ally of the United States. Both during and after the Revolution, Alexander Hamilton urged Americans to form a stronger union of the states. So now let's think about that section, you guys. What do you think the founder section was mostly about? Go ahead and pause the video and I want you to jot down in this box that says founders gist. I want you to jot down what you think this section of the text is mostly about. All right, guys, let's continue reading now that you have the gist of the founders section. Events leading to the Revolution. Britain established its first colony in North America in 1607. By the early 1760s, there were 13 colonies. These were Connecticut, Delaware, Georgia, Maryland, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, New Jersey, New York, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, South Carolina, and Virginia. About 1.5 million colonists lived there. The colonies were far away from Britain and they were used to running their own affairs. Each had its own assembly. They ran the everyday business of the colonies and collected taxes. Britain rarely taxed the Americans. The French and Indian War, 1754 to 63, changed that. Britain won that war against France, but the war was costly and Britain owed a lot of money. Britain also needed money to keep up its army in North America. The British government therefore decided to tax the Americans. Colonial Opposition. The British Parliament passed, oh, guys, we almost forgot to do our gist. Hold on. So, thinking about this section of the text, what do you guys think this section was mostly about? Well, I definitely think that in this section, it talks a lot about how the British had these 13 colonies and they decided to tax them after they lost money during the French and Indian War. So the British ran 13 American colonies. Make sure you're putting this on your chart as well, friends. So the British ran 13 American colonies and decided to tax them after they lost money during the French and Indian War. All right, perfect. Let's go ahead and continue reading. Colonial Opposition. The British Parliament passed the Stamp Act in 1765. It taxed newspapers and almost everything else that was printed. This angered the colonists. Why, they asked, should we pay taxes to Britain? The colonists decided to fight against the taxes. Representatives of 9 of the colonies met in New York in 1765. They formed the Stamp Act Congress. It said the colonists should boycott or refuse to buy British goods. Groups called the Sons of Liberty also fought against British taxes. They often used violence against British tax collectors. The colonists' opposition forced the Parliament to repeal or withdraw the Stamp Act. This made the colonists aware of their power. Other British attempts to impose new taxes only made things worse. Boston was the center of opposition to Britain's tax policies. In 1770, a raggedy crowd of people taunted some British soldiers. The frightened soldiers shot into the crowd, killing 5 Americans. The Boston Massacre, as this was called, led to a new boycott. Parliament final Parliament again gave in. It removed all taxes except for one on tea, the most popular drink in the colonies. The Americans were outraged. On the night of December 16, 1773, a group of men boarded British ships in Boston Harbor. They threw the cargoes of tea overboard. This action became known as the Boston Tea Party. The British Parliament then passed 4 harsh measures in 1774. I'm seeing a lot of dates in this particular text. The colonists called them the Intolerable Acts. The acts closed the port of Boston. They took away many of Massachusetts' rights of self government, and they allowed British troops to be housed in private homes. These measures only served to unite the colonists. More and more of them felt that their basic liberties were at stake. In 1774, representatives of all the colonies except Georgia met in Philadelphia at the First Continental Congress. They tried to get Britain to resolve the issues peacefully, but they were ready to fight if it became necessary. So let's think about this section, you guys. What was this section mostly about? And this one was a little longer, but as we look at it, I remember them talking a lot about how the colonists were unhappy with the taxes. They were upset and they rebelled or they acted against British taxes. So I feel like that is really what this section of the text is mostly about. So I'm going to go ahead and jot that down on my sticky note. I want you to go ahead and go over to your ELA journal and you can jot down your thoughts as well. The colonists were upset because of the taxes from Britain. So they fought back through things like the Boston Tea Party and Continental Congress. Okay, guys, so we have just read through this entire text, thinking about the gist throughout. And you guys, one thing that is super important as we are reading is that we are constantly checking our thinking and asking ourselves, what is this about? Remember, we were talking about asking ourselves questions as we read and checking to make sure that we understand the text. So instead of reading this whole article where we might have read it and maybe we remembered some things, but maybe some facts slipped away from us, when we kind of pause and think about the entire text as we are reading, it helps us to be better readers and to better understand the text. So you guys, here on this chart, we are going to think about the different events that happened inside of this text. So I know as a reader, right, I do not always have to reread the entire text to answer specific questions. So what I am going to do is I'm going to skim this text and look for these specific dates. So we are using that nonfiction text, the American Revolution, to help us complete this chart. And we are thinking about what event happened on that given date. Our dates are given right here and why it happened. So we're thinking about the what and the why. So let's go back to our text and see if we can find this date, 1754 to 63. Let's go back into the text. Let's see, 1754. Do I see it here? I don't think I see it there. Oh, 1754 to 63. Okay, so this was the French and Indian War. Okay, so during this time, we know the French, oh, let me put my in there, French and Indian War was going on. Now, why did this happen? Let's go back into the text and see if we have a why. So I think that's on the first page. The French and Indian War changed that. Britain won that war against French, but the war was costly and Britain owed a lot of money. Huh. Well, hold on, you guys. As I'm thinking about this particular event, I don't really see the why inside of the text. So Miss James is going to kind of help us out here just a little bit. So when we were talking in social studies before, we talked about how there was a lot of fighting over land, right? Different explorers were going out and they were finding this different land. So in the French and Indian War, this was basically a big fight over who would own different lands across the Americas and even in other areas. So this was a fight over land ownership. Okay, let's go ahead. Now we're going to look for the date 1765. Let's see if we can find 1765 in the text. 1765. No, 1765. Do you guys see 1765 in the text? I see 1765 right here. I see it right here, but I also see it right here too. Well, let's see what's going on. The British Parliament passed the Stamp Act in 1765. And then it says representatives of the 9 colonies met in New York in 1765. They formed the Stamp Act Congress. Oh, okay. So we can say Stamp Act and Stamp Act Congress. So the Stamp Act helped the British make money because this is where they were taxing the Americans, and then the Stamp Act Congress allowed the Americans to meet about the tax because we know like they were upset. So they got together, they met about it, and they talked about that tax. Okay, let's look for the date 1770. 1770. Hmm. Do you guys see the date 1770 in your text? Oh, I see it right here. It says Boston was the center of opposition to Britain's tax policy. In 1770, a ragged crowd of people taunted some British soldiers. The frightened soldiers shot into the crowd, killing 5 Americans. The Boston Massacre, as it was called, led to a new boycott. Oh my gosh. drama, y'all. So we know in 1770, the Boston Massacre occurred. And why did this happen? So here, let's go back to the text and see exactly what they called him, because I felt like they called him something crazy. A raggedy crowd. A raggedy crowd, y'all. So a raggedy crowd. This is why it happened, according to the text. Raggedy crowd taunted British soldiers, and they shot and killed 5 Americans. Okay, you guys. So we know as readers, right, we are constantly going back into the text and checking and seeing what happened and even thinking about why these things are occurring. And we are definitely doing that when we read historical nonfiction texts, because we always want to learn from history. So, what you are going to do, I want you to go ahead and think about these last two or these last three dates here. So you have 1773, you have 1774, and then you have two 1774s here. So I'm looking for two different times in the text where 1774 came up. And then thinking about what happened. And then according to the text, why did that particular event happen? After you wrap that up, you can go ahead and open up your reading log. I can click directly to the link here from my ELA journal. You can go ahead and complete your reading, your independent reading for today, and jot down some things on your reading log. If you want to, I know y'all y'all be asking me this and that. I'll go ahead for today, since we did do a lot of reading with each other. If you want to respond to the text that we just read based on one of the question prompts here, you can definitely do that. So if you want to think about some of these things here now, one thing though, like most of these ones are focused on fiction. So I want to go down to that second slide and think, okay, maybe like author's purpose. Do I know like the text structure? Can I summarize this text? Are there any questions that I have or any connections that I can make? Can I record like some facts and maybe even see were there any opinions in that text? So if you want to go, I think compare and contrast would be a really good one too, because you could compare like um wait, no, I'm thinking of our other article. But you could still compare like how the British felt and what the British were doing based on the American actions. So once you complete your chart here, the only other thing that Miss James wants you to do is go through your reading. Y'all, I miss you and I will see you on Tuesday. Peace. Bye.